41% of people in one high-risk metabolic group developed type 2 diabetes years after losing 8% of their body weight and keeping it off. 0% of people in 4 other risk groups from the exact same weight loss program developed diabetes at all. That is the headline finding from the Tübingen Lifestyle Intervention Program, a 2-year weight loss and exercise program in Germany that has now tracked 190 participants for close to a decade afterward. Weight loss is supposed to be the single most reliable tool doctors have for preventing type 2 diabetes in people who are already at risk. This study does not contradict that for most people. It found something narrower and more useful. A specific subgroup, defined by how their bodies process blood sugar rather than how much weight they carried, for whom losing weight and keeping it off simply did not work the way it is supposed to. Figuring out who that group is, and why the standard advice failed them, is the story. Let us sort the signal from the noise. The Tübingen Lifestyle Intervention Program, known as TULIP, enrolled 190 adults in Germany who were already at elevated risk for type 2 diabetes. Based on factors like prediabetes, family history, or excess weight, every participant went through the same 2-year structured program. A calorie-controlled diet, a supervised exercise plan, and regular check-ins designed to produce real, sustained weight loss rather than a short-term crash diet. On average, participants lost about 8% of their body weight and mostly kept it off. That alone made this a well-run trial, since long-term adherence to lifestyle programs is notoriously hard to sustain. And an 8% loss held for years is a genuinely meaningful result by the standards of most weight loss research. What made TULIP unusual is what researchers did next. Instead of stopping at weight and blood sugar numbers, they used detailed metabolic testing, insulin sensitivity, insulin secretion, liver fat, and other markers, to sort participants into 6 distinct clusters based on how their individual metabolism actually worked, not just how much weight they had to lose. Then they tracked all 6 clusters for roughly 9 more years to see who developed diabetes and who did not. 5 of the 6 metabolic clusters responded to weight loss almost exactly as expected. 4 of those groups had 0 cases of diabetes during the entire 9-year follow-up. Weight loss worked, plainly and completely, for the large majority of participants. Cluster 5 did not follow that pattern. This group was defined by a specific combination: older age, higher starting body weight, and pronounced insulin resistance, meaning their cells already responded poorly to insulin's signal to absorb blood sugar before the program even began. Despite losing weight and keeping it off at rates similar to every other cluster, 41% of people in Cluster 5 went on to develop type 2 diabetes over the following years. Their blood sugar kept climbing. Their insulin-producing cells kept losing function. The intervention that fully protected 4 other groups barely slowed this one down. That is the specific, falsifiable finding. Weight loss is not one intervention with one universal effect. It interacts differently with different underlying metabolic states. And for this particular combination of age, weight, and insulin resistance, it was not enough on its own. This matters because nearly all public health messaging about diabetes prevention treats weight loss as a single, universal prescription. Lose weight, lower your risk, case closed. That advice is not wrong for most people. TULIP itself proves it works for the majority of high-risk individuals. The problem is that it is incomplete for the specific group who may need it most. Cluster 5 participants were already older and more insulin resistant than the other groups. meaning their pancreas had likely been compensating for reduced insulin sensitivity for years before anyone measured it. By the time weight loss began, the underlying mechanism driving their risk may have already progressed past the point where shedding pounds alone could reverse it. Researchers argue this points toward a future where diabetes prevention gets tailored to a person's specific metabolic profile, insulin resistance, insulin secretion capacity, and related markers, rather than treated as a single risk category solved by a single intervention. That kind of precision testing is not yet standard in most doctors' offices, which means most people in a cluster 5-like situation today have no easy way to even know they are in it before starting a weight loss program. A few real limits here. TULIP followed just 190 people total, and cluster 5 was one of 6 subgroups within that group, meaning the number of people actually driving the 41% figure is small, on the order of a few dozen individuals. Small subgroup sizes make percentages swing harder from just a handful of cases. And this result needs to be replicated in a larger population before it should reshape clinical guidelines. The 6-cluster system itself, while based on real metabolic measurements, is also a research classification that has not yet been validated as a standard screening tool doctors can order at a routine visit. This study cannot tell you which cluster you would fall into without the kind of detailed insulin and metabolic testing most primary care visits do not include. It also does not mean weight loss failed or was not worth pursuing. Cluster 5 participants who lost weight still likely fared better than if they had not. The study only shows diabetes still developed despite that effort, not that the weight loss did nothing at all. This is not medical advice, and nobody should read it as a reason to abandon weight loss as a diabetes prevention strategy. Quick recap. TULIP followed 190 at-risk adults through a 2-year weight loss program and 9 more years of monitoring, sorting them into 6 metabolic clusters. 4 clusters had 0 diabetes cases. 1 cluster, defined by older age, higher weight, and high insulin resistance, saw 41% develop diabetes anyway, despite losing and keeping off real weight. So, signal or noise? Leaning signal, with real limits on how far to take it. The core finding, that identical weight loss produced wildly different outcomes depending on a person's underlying metabolic profile, is exactly the kind of nuance large population studies usually flatten out. And it came from careful, purpose-built metabolic testing rather than a guess. But the subgroup size is small, and thus needs replication before it reshapes anyone's treatment plan. For nearly everyone at risk, weight loss remains the single best tool available. For a specific minority, it may not be enough by itself, and identifying who that is will likely require better testing than most people currently get. Subscribe for the health research that actually holds up. Sorted from the noise. Signal from the noise. Every week.